Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Stars Power Podcast, where I interview founders, innovators, and business professionals with one goal: to inspire and prepare the next generation of entrepreneurs and leaders. I'm Rex Zhang, your host, and without further ado, let's get right into it. Hello, everyone. I'm Rex Zhang. Today, I'm joined with Anish Polakala. He's a serial founder, AI expert, student at UC Berkeley, and so much more. So, Anish, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
No, for sure, man. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, it's awesome. So for the viewers that don't know you already, could you just give a brief introduction of yourself, the things that you're working on right now?
Yeah. I mean, when I first started founding in middle school, I come from a long line of entrepreneurs. Everyone kind of had their own business. My dad loves to found as well, so I think that's where I got my spark from. My first thing was a web development agency for small businesses who couldn't, develop their own designs and put them online. So we helped them get an online presence. I pivoted to a couple of personal projects. I've always been coding, so it was kind of nice to put it out onto the internet and see that I could actually make a quick buck from this. I pivoted to my next big startup, which was Lemon Hat, which was a delivery system for local farmers. Currently in the Bay Area, basically what it does is normally you have the farmer, you have the middleman, and you have the end consumer, right? We just cut out the middleman and we 7x the farmer's profits. That was a huge thing for me. I love doing that. It's still running actually. So lemonhat.io if you want to check it out.
Ooh.
And currently I'm doing some research at UC Berkeley and just figuring out what to do next, hopefully in health tech. But yeah,
No,
that's
that's
basically a
awesome,
quick.
dude. Yeah, that's awesome. So you started in middle school, is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Cool, awesome. So your dad kind of got you into kind of coding and stuff like that, and then kind of got you into the startup space, or did you explore more? Like there was just something else?
I mean, I think everyone in my family, like my dad,
Yeah.
my uncle, even my grandpa, they have their own businesses. So from a really young age, I was like, okay, I don't want to do this normal job, like, go in person to an office or anything. I want to do my own thing. And after I started coding, I was doing these projects. I was like, oh wow, I can actually like, people
Mhm.
would pay me if I had a unique idea. So I started pivoting away from like, just purely coding and started figuring out how the market works. And then I started, there's a cold web development. I could really easily do this for small mom and pop shops. So
Right.
yeah, that's how I got started. And I just really like to found, so
Right.
that's why I kept going.
No, that's awesome that you found that early because I know a lot of people out there they kind of struggle with finding their interests at the beginning. They kind of have to
Yeah.
pivot. But that's awesome that you found that like founding and doing startup work is right was good for you. I mean, for me myself, I'm still kind of exploring many different interests like many other high schoolers out there. I know, but I think there's definitely many paths to sex. Some people find it early, some people find it later. But you know, at the end of the day, you find your own interest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You've been a part of, like, 6 startups, I think, or, I think I saw on your LinkedIn profile. It's cool, awesome. So, that started in middle school, and now are you working on something new right now other than I know you mentioned Lemon Hat and some of the earlier
Yeah,
ones?
I mean, I'm working on something new with my co-founder who actually dropped out of Berkeley.
But, like, how do you kinda go through the ideation process how do you go through, like, the ideation process and actually executing it? Because I feel like a lot of viewers out there or people just trying to start startups, they're kinda stuck with, like, going from idea to execution. You kinda don't know where to start, especially if they're young, right? They don't really have a lot of
Right.
resources.
I mean, I'd say the number one thing is a lot of people look for an idea, they kind of force it, and then they see like, okay, if someone can work with it, if it works, right? Then that's a viable business. That's not the case. So just because it may work and it may simplify stuff for certain people, that's not necessarily a good business model. The thing you should be focusing on is can you consistently break people's habits to the point where people are converting to your product and they're not just using it as a one-time thing, but it completely changes the way they do things. And I'll give you an example, like Facebook was an incredible example of this because, people networking, it used to be like, you had to do in person. This completely changed that. Lemon Hat, for example, normally you have to get fresh food from the farmer's market, but now you can use
Mhm.
our app and that becomes a daily or weekly thing. Like every Sunday you order fresh
Right.
foods from the farmer's market. Anyway, you really got to see if in the long term, right? Like, will people use this as a fad for 1 month and like just my friends and, maybe as a favor to me, or will this actually be something beneficial in people's lives?
How did you kinda go through with scaling it, right? I know for I think Lemon Hat was one of your top successful ventures with that. I know like it's hard to kind of disrupt the whole system, right? Because a lot of people focus on small things because it's easier to get it out there and easier for people to try it out, but it's harder to get people get kind of scale, I think maybe. What are your thoughts and how did you kind of go through that process of going from maybe like a few users to getting a bunch of users on?
Well, okay, so number 1, I think you should definitely have a story behind you. That's how you get your first users, right? It's like, Cooley is a really good great example of this because the entire reasons Cooley got traction was because Roy Lee was like, "I am getting all these tech interviews, and I dropped out of Columbia, and I actually got kicked out of Columbia, and because of all of this, they got so much traction because it felt personal to the user, right?
Right.
To
Yeah.
really follow along with them. And I think for a lot of other startups, it's the same. For in like the eyes of the public, you really got to establish that storyline, that plot. Number two, I'd say definitely be very like, kind of scrappy, kind of unethical when
Okay.
you're reaching out your distribution strategy. Like when I first did Lemon Hat, I literally like, went in person to all these farms and was like, hey, you want to like, be a part of our app? We can sell your product and you could get it like 7x your profits, and
Right.
I pitched them all of this stuff, and a lot of them were like, "Oh yeah, screw off, man, like, we're not interested." But
Yeah.
the very small fraction of them, they became our first customers, and they're still with us now. So,
Right.
I didn't even set up appointments, but I think that's definitely something people underrate. Like, you have to be messaging people on LinkedIn. You have to be taking as many shots as possible, and
Right.
if you don't, you're just not gonna make it.
Right, just
Like,
staying consistent, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I know I heard something, a lot earlier, like, some dude, he, like, got, like, a founder's Venmo or something and sent them 2 cents, and then he was saying, like, "Here's my 2 cents." I thought that was very interesting, like, you just gotta stand out from, like, the regular kind of you
Well,
kind
there's
of,
this
like
other guy, I think he
yeah.
sent 1,000
Oh,
or
really?
something, right, to this, like, VC or something, and he was like, "Okay, this is my idea, blah, blah, blah," and he actually got a response,
Wow.
and what, 5 years later, or something like that, he got his money back, his 2 grand, so take the risk,
Wow.
like
Yeah, so you kinda, have that same idea of you have to, like, stand out, do things that other like, you see a lot of, like, sales growth people, like, just sending out generic messages or on LinkedIn or whatever. You kinda
yeah,
have to
yeah,
be different from that. I think it's kinda hard, like, at first, it's kinda hard to find, like, a growth strategy because I know on LinkedIn, it's like people don't really take, like, growth people seriously or, like, people
yeah.
sell these things, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a something. I feel like a lot of people are like embarrassed to be unique in a certain sense. They're like always like, "Oh, what if they think this? What if they think that?" I'm probably like the weirdest kid you could come across. Like I kind of like tweak out every time. I'm kind of like hyperactive sometimes. Honestly, just like don't give a fuck about what other
Right,
people think. Like so many people are like, "Oh yeah, what if they think this? What if they think this?" Like 10 minutes they're gonna forget. So just like
right.
just do it. You do you, bro.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But that's I think a lot of people it's harder to do than to say that, right? They say, "Oh, I gotta be different." But when they're like actually talking to a person, they're like, I gotta like keep myself respectful, all that." But
Right.
maybe it's like a learning journey for people for sure.
I think like being weird gets your foot in the door. Obviously,
Mm,
don't like, say a bunch of like weird shit during like a phone call or something, right?
yeah.
But I definitely think it gets you noticed.
No, absolutely, yeah, because there's so many people that are it's kinda like uniform, people
Exactly. Yeah.
like all those salespeople, right, I said earlier. Okay, moving on, I know you do like, you said earlier you do some research at UC Berkeley. How do you think that's kind of like, could you give us like a brief, like, kinda overview of what you're researching and stuff like that, and how that's kinda helped you, like, understand maybe new ideas or helped you in the startup space or business space? I'm not sure,
Okay.
like,
I'll
however much you
preface
wanted to yeah,
I'll preface this by saying I do not recommend research. I
okay,
honestly think that you should just like, do your own venture, you do your own business. The only reason I applied for research was because I thought this professor's project was really cool. We're currently building AI to detect, we get surveys from these third world countries like Chad,
mm,
in Africa and India, right? And it's basically a new drug that's coming on market to treat different diseases like diarrhea and like, rehydration systems for to treat that. And we're figuring out how to take this data and to analyze it and to find all the specific holes in the data. So maybe later we can provide very, very simple and
right,
specific feedback to these teams and the drug development teams so we can get another round in progress, test this with another batch of children in India or third world countries.
right,
And that's like, a consistent cycle. So we're trying to give this Python module to these research teams. But again, I mean, I'm only doing this because of pure passion. I just like love
right.
their mission. But I genuinely do think people should focus more on the like, doing stuff themselves and getting them into a venture, just because you gain so much more applicable knowledge to other
Right.
areas of
Yeah,
life.
that sounds awesome. So, do you think that like this you kind of strive to do some of these like more impactful type of work? You know, like you said earlier, you kind of align with their mission of helping these third world countries. Is that something that you take importance to, especially if you're like trying to start a new venture or something like that?
No,
Okay.
absolutely not. I'd say it's great to say on, like, a
Yeah.
podcast
Yeah. Yeah.
thing,
For
but
sure.
to be quite frank, I really just do things that I find really interesting. I
Right.
really
Okay.
like founding because I get to look at an entire new market, and I get to come up with a business plan for it. I get to see how to enter the market, how to differentiate all the consumers,
Right.
differentiate from the competition and everything. That's really interesting for me. It's kinda like a game each time you found a
Mhm.
company, and I really love going through that process. Like, one of the things I was doing was, it was basically a video game that I made. Like, a couple of years ago, I made a video game with my friends, and we were trying to make it a big thing. It didn't work out, but again, it had no relevance to, social importance or social good. It was just because I genuinely was interested in it, and I think
Okay.
if you're obsessed with something and you find something that you really, really like, there's no way it's not gonna be successful.
No, that's awesome. So you kind of do it just for the love of the game, like the passion.
Exactly, yeah, yeah.
That's awesome, that's awesome. So I know you kinda like, even though like this you have a lot of passion, right? You definitely go through a lot of, like everyone in the startup space does it, like a lot of step backs. I think you told me like I was like on LinkedIn one day, you said like you've gone like 30 plus like rejections and or something like that from VCs or something. And I just wanted to know, like what keeps you motivated, like even through the failure, just like the same passion that you have, or is there something else that keeps you going?
I mean, I'd say I'm young, and I
Yeah.
know I'm, like, still young, I'm 18, but as soon as you get to 20, like, everyone takes that seal off you, like, that you're young, and I feel like in the next 2 years, I'm gonna lose the feeling, the aura when you walk into a room and say, "I'm 18," or "I'm a teenager, and I'm building the next big startup,"
Mm.
and I really wanna milk everything out of my youth before
Right.
it's gone. That's the main reason I'm trying so many different things, and I keep going right now because I know it's not gonna last forever.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's awesome to, as I said, like explore everything young. Like you kind of have like your back. Like there's no really downside to it, right? Like even your failures, and you learn from them, and that's like something in itself,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely nothing to lose because, 90% of, college graduates start off with nothing, and if you
Right.
lose everything, you don't
You're
really have
still in
much to lose
college.
right now, so yeah, it's
Right.
fine.
And you're still in college. I know you're in SF and all, and I think right now there's like a lot of kind of this Gen Z type of hype around like startups and all that. Like I hear a lot of people saying like, "Well, I need to like my goal is to just like drop out of college and then do a startup. Like I gotta drop out."
Right, right.
Like what do you kind of think about this like mindset that like it's kind of I don't know, like a lot of transactional type of
Got it, got
bad
it.
mindset that you have to drop out and stuff like that.
I mean, it's not entirely bad, but
Yeah.
90 it's not okay, I'd say it's really good for certain people, but 99% of people who wanna drop out and do startups, they're doing it out of fear because they don't wanna do a 9 to 5 or, if they see their friends doing it and they're like, "I'm falling behind." 99% of people who adopt this mentality shouldn't be adopting this mentality. There are definitely other ways to go. It's not like you have to do a 9 to 5,
Mhm.
but you don't have to do a startup. You should genuinely have a passion for it or some very, very strong reason to found a startup
Right.
or to do something like that. Oftentimes, it starts off with an interest, and having a startup isn't even in your mind, right? It's just
Right.
something that happens naturally. And I think that's
Yeah.
a big thing. A second thing is I don't think, just doing it because it might be interesting or like it might be cool to do is a strong enough reason to start a startup. I think you genuinely have to have something behind you. Like, maybe you grew up poor because I know a lot of people, like even we weren't like, the best financially when I was growing up. That's kind of like, pushing me. Or maybe you are dedicating yourself to a cause that you have a personal link to, like, like cancer or something. But you genuinely need to have a very, very strong reason, always tugging at the back of your head because you're going to fail a lot. And
Right.
then that, strong reason is gonna keep you pushing through, and
Right.
eventually it's gonna lead you to success.
Right. That's actually very interesting, I think. You said that like people do it because of fear. I think back maybe like when the kind of SF or like startup culture wasn't as big, the ones doing the startups were the ones kind of trailblazing, right? They weren't doing it because of fear. But then now I think they see all these people doing these startups, and then there's this is now like the new path that you have to go, right? And
Yeah.
it's that now the people that see other people before it was do investment banking stuff like that. Oh, I gotta go into this specific job. Now it's kind of like, oh, I see these people drop, and now I need to follow them and drop out as well. So that's kind of interesting how the kind of culture has shifted from before. I think
Yeah.
it's actually pretty like significant, I would say, right? Would you say so as well?
Yeah, I mean, okay, look, I think this all comes down to these are all like very young people, right? And the core question at the at the debate is, should I actually do college? Me personally, I don't think like I'm only in college because my mom wants me to get a degree. I would totally drop out.
Right.
But I think college is good for people who are going into like research or medicine or law or something like that. But if you really think about it, right? After like if you paint out a timeline, say you're a CS major, you go through college, you learn all this stuff, and say about like 50% of it is fluff, stuff you don't actually need, stuff that's not applicable, right? Then you get your first job. Then after your first job, you work there for a few months, for a few years maybe, and then maybe you or like maybe that's an internship, then you catapult to another job because of a referral or a connection you get. But if you just learn the skills in a much shorter time frame, say a year, or like even in high school,
Mhm.
and you get a job and you have like solid work experience, I just truly believe you can build a network and the connections you need to basically apply, basically a cover for your college degree. And you can get that connection and then you can catapult to an actual job. And once you get your actual job, nobody really cares about your degree.
Right.
It's more about the referrals you have and the connections you have and the projects you've done. So I definitely think college is good for some people, but a lot of people definitely, it's definitely a good idea
Absolutely.
to explore other things, skip class once in a while, and
Right.
explore things outside of your school.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I think definitely the value of college is it differs from person to person. But the only thing I'm afraid of is a lot of these high schoolers kind of adopting this mentality that like seeing all these other people saying that all college is like it's a scam, like you shouldn't go to college, and then suddenly it becomes like a bunch of high schoolers just dropping out without kind of giving that thought of what they actually want to do, right? And making like radical decisions off the foot. And then it might not be as the best for them because of this new kind of culture type thing. But I think I definitely see where you're going. Like a lot of the guests that come on has said like college isn't like truly beneficial. It's just like kind of a safe path for people to go through.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I would recommend to a lot of people. Like I said, right? For people who want to start a startup, that's like 1% of people
Yeah.
who are actually born for startup culture. And I get the problem of, marketing this and glorifying
Yeah.
this mentality for high schoolers. But you know what? I actually like I don't know because on one hand, you want to get the idea out there that you have to build
Yeah.
these skills, and on the other hand, you still want to make sure if you don't have these skills, you got to go into college.
Yeah.
So I don't have an answer for you. I don't have like a great solution, and I don't want to
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
fake a good answer, but,
No, it's definitely complex. It's a complex problem. Like, it can't be solved with like just like a simple solution for sure.
exactly, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. But one thing is that do you think that like people are like completely 100% born for it, or do you think you can kind of learn these skills along the way? Like for example, high schoolers like maybe dropping out and saying, like I want to start a startup. Can they learn like these skills along the way, or do you think some people are just not born for it?
I mean, it's okay, look, it's like if you wanna build the skills, you have to have, like, a kind of mentality before you start
Mhm.
building the skills, right? So, like
Right.
I said before, you have to have, like, this strong drive to like, some people, like, Joe Rogan or something, he really likes to learn. That's, like, a good mentality for him to do his podcast and everything.
Right.
A couple of people really are motivated to not be, like how they grew up. They want a big change. They want to chase the money and everything. Some people just do it for pure pride, right? To, be at the top of the world and everything. And I think those are the types of people who can really make it and who really have the skills. And I do think that there's some aspect that you were born for. But a lot of people, they switch to making a startup or something because they want to make a difference, and
Right.
I totally get that. I really do. But this might be sound a little weird, but I don't think that's a strong enough motivation to actually get up and make something successful, because when you're have $0 and you're living in your friend's dorm room and you don't have like anything to your name, helping the world is not going to be in your mind at all. It's going to be somewhere else and you're focused on self-preservation. So
Right.
you really have to have a strong reason and drive you're going for this. And I think that is, in your childhood, in your upbringing, that slowly goes into your mindset.
Right. So you think that that drive is the most important part of about anything in this path?
Yeah, I genuinely do. Like that drive can be applied to anything.
Cool. No, that's awesome. Yeah. So moving a little bit about like SF and your environment. I know you're pretty close to SF
Right.
originally, right? And do you think that's kind of been a driving factor of you kind of? I know your dad also or your family has a lot of connections, but do you think your environment with being in SF or being around SF has kind of shaped like how you kind of approach your startups or your connections or your network? And also other than that, do you think people should be striving to go to SF or maybe New York to kinda get this type of
Mm.
environment?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I'll start off,
Yeah,
like, my family, we're mostly small businesses,
yeah.
convenience stores. Dad did, a small app once, like a movie app,
Mhm.
but, we definitely didn't have a lot of connections straight to SF. When I first started out, I quickly realized that, oh my god, SF, the entire reason it's so, hyped up is because everyone there is a VC or they're a founder, and it's the one place where you can fail as many times as you want, and you'll have people, encouraging you to keep going. And I think that's really the thing about SF. But should people move to SF? I don't think so. Especially not I see a lot of people moving to SF when they don't have anything, right? When they just want to start their business and they're moving to SF. I definitely think SF is a great place to go for maybe like a 1 week trip if you want to get VC funding or somewhere to move permanently when you have a lot of traction and you have consistent MRR. And I think it's a
Right.
great place to scale early stage founders who haven't gotten their first users yet and are still in that development stage. Definitely not. Please stay in your hometown, and when you get some traction you should definitely come to SF. So I
Right.
think yes, but also no.
Okay. Yeah, no, awesome. Great answer. I love that.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, other than that, like for you yourself, I know you have some of these new ventures, you're coming up with a new startup soon or
Right, right.
idea. What's next for you, in these next few years? What kind of aspirations do you have? Like continue in this startup field, kind of make some more big moves, or what's like a big I know you have some big motivators, maybe your family or just your
Mm.
passion to do these startups, right? Yeah. Where do you see yourself in like maybe let's just say the next 5 years?
Okay, let's see. Honestly, I don't I would love to, this may sound somewhat cliche, but
Fair
I
enough.
would love to drop out after this semester and after I get some VC funding and some
Right.
traction with the thing I'm currently working on, and I hopefully work at just get an apartment in SF and grind it out with a couple of engineers for year 1, year 2 maybe, just 24/7, kind of door dashing Chipotle every day, going to the gym with the team. I really like that environment in SF.
Right.
And I want to do that with a team that I can grow close with. Year 2, same thing. Year 3, maybe getting some traction, moving into a bigger office, getting an apartment of my own, and really settling in. And I still don't think I'm gonna be out of grinding 24/7,
Right.
right? I'm just gonna keep on growing. And year 5, which is gonna be when I'm 23, then I figure it's finally time for me to take a little bit of a step back so I don't have to grind too
Right.
much, but I can also start enjoying life. But honestly, I still see myself in SF. I'm still
Cool.
young, and I
Awesome.
definitely think that's going to be a big part, and hopefully a girlfriend along the way.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. That's a very nice gameplay, and I think you mentioned you at 23 you kind of want to step back. Um, I know a lot of people they have mixed feelings about like work and life and all that balance. What are your thoughts about like kind of balance your balance in your life? Kind of, do you think when you're young you should be fully 100% grinding it out and then later kind of stepping back, like as you said kind of earlier, or do you think um you might prioritize some other things like your personal health over, yeah, your, like, startups or something like that?
Right. Okay. So when you're young, I'm also
Yeah.
young, right? And people are young, I would definitely suggest taking care of yourself. You can go all in And like the two things you should focus on is your venture, or like, whatever your project is, and your health. Because me personally, I got into the gym, I got into eating very healthy at a very young age. My mom is a doctor, so she kind of got me into that, right? So I've been into that, and I think that's really helped me, and that ties back to how all in you can go on your startup. But I also think that you shouldn't be seeking, like, parties, or like, attending every single birthday party or stuff like that when you're at a really young age. I think a lot of people think that they have to do it because of social pressures, but other than your health and other than your startup, I don't think you should be focusing on anything else until you're about 20, or like unless you get like, insane success, right? And then when you reach that point, for me, I'm projecting it's going to be about 23 when I reach that, like, fuck you money point.
Mhm.
And when I reach that point, then I can start to take a step back, and I'll still have enough of my youth to enjoy stuff, maybe go to Cabo, maybe go to like Turks and Caicos or something, and like, and have some fun, go clubbing. I wouldn't feel that I deserve it if I go now.
Right. So you definitely like a thing where like you spend the effort and then you get the reward after, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, no, that's awesome. So I just have one last question for you. Thank you so much for coming on, by the way. Okay, yeah. So just to close it out, what's the maybe one last piece of advice you have to the viewers out there? They could be in all stages of life. Some may be kind of struggling with where they want to go with their life or like their career. What one piece of advice would you give to them?
Hmm. I'd say, hmm. Okay, this is hard. Let
No,
me
all
think.
good, all good. Yeah.
I'd say definitely when you're getting into the market, this is kind of like, business focused, but when you're getting into the market and you're catering to other people, or like, pretty much in all walks of life, you really got to understand that your technical skills isn't going to be everything. I can't tell you the number of times I've been in an interview and I get like, a personal connection with the interviewee, and that's why I get the interview. Or I'm like, a good public speaker, and that's why I get the job or anything. Or, when I meet with a VC, that I kind of like, get their viewpoint and I read them. But I definitely think emotions and having the social sense to understand what the other person on the other side of the table is feeling, that's really, really important. That's something everyone overlooks. Like, you can't be antisocial, and
Mhm.
definitely build those skills up, and don't just lock yourself in a room
Right.
24/7.
Awesome. It's not just all technical at all.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, that's a really big part of it. But I've seen people with no technical experience and just a huge network of really good friends make it. And I would honestly say that social skills are 10 times more
Yeah.
important than technical skills. Yeah.
Right, yeah. I mean, I heard before, like, you can be underqualified for, like, a position and still get it if you have, like, that network, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
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 Okay, yeah, awesome. So that was all I had for you, Anish. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching the episode, and I really hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the episode, please consider subscribing or following. And as always, we're having conversations that build the next generation. Peace out.